Suge Knight spent a few years in prison. Charges were centered on assault convictions and violations of probation for assaulting two rappers. He was then sentenced to 28 years. Suge could not keep himself out of jail. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is your girl AV to the 7th power, and on this channel we talk about all things law, true crime, and debauchery. Today we are finally diving in to the mystery of the Tupac Shakur murder trial, and that means that we need to go down a few rabbit holes. Today's rabbit hole is centered on Suge Knight. One thing that we know about the Tupac Shakur murder trial that is happening in June of 2024 is that there are many holes and narratives and mysteries surrounding this case. We are going to talk about Suge Knight and his particular involvement in this case. And can we not leave out Diddy and his involvement as well? We've put out a few videos here on this channel, and you guys know that there are also so many different conspiracy theories involving Diddy. So many people have tried to link Diddy to this particular case. The interesting thing about Suge Knight and his involvement in this case is that he is finally speaking out. In fact, Suge Knight has released a podcast called Collect Call with Suge from the penitentiary, where he is airing out his involvement with these cases, some of the other connections he's had with people in the hip-hop industry. Diddy is a big part of that. Diddy has been involved in so many lawsuits in the last few weeks that have spanned over decades. And today, we're gonna get to the bottom of that and see how these two people, Diddy and Suge, intertwine. Let's talk about Tupac's life and his impact. Tupac Shakur is one of the best rappers of all time, and I don't have to tell you guys that. I think you're pretty familiar with his music at this point. The Shakur family has really tried to keep a strong grasp on the Tupac Shakur legacy, even opening up a Tupac Shakur center here in Atlanta. They opened up this center to make sure that youth had a place to go, and this particular youth that they were trying to target were kids that were focused on entertainment and music, providing a safe place for them to learn and a safe place for them to thrive. The interesting thing is, behind that center at one point in time here in Atlanta, there stood a monument dedicated to Tupac Shakur, and it was beautiful. Tupac did not only have an influence on music, he was also a great actor, and he also had an influence on activism. And that stems from the deep roots that his family, specifically his parents, stood for. He was a significant person in pop culture and world history. One thing that he is tied to is the East Coast, West Coast drama. Let's talk about the night of the shooting. In 1996, Tupac Shakur was in Las Vegas, Nevada, with his entourage attending a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand. Mike Tyson won that fight, but what a lot of people don't know is what ensued after that fight. The boxing fight was over. Tupac had a show that particular night. What he ended up doing is walking the casino floor, seeing a person, Baby Lane. This is a person that he had beef with in the past. There is some gang activity here. Baby Lane was alone. Tupac and his entourage beat Baby Lane. Why do they beat Baby Lane? Particularly because there was a chain at issue that was snatched off of somebody's chest. This was an issue, and Tupac and team went down and took care of that. Baby Lane called his uncle Keefy D. Boop, boop, boop. Hey, Keefy D, when you know something just happened. Keefy D, also in Las Vegas, along with two other people, after Tupac and Suge Knight and this large entourage that just got into this fight, were on their way to a club for the Tupac show. They were gunned down. Tupac and Suge Knight were in a car. Tupac was shot a few times, and Suge Knight was also shot on the side of his head, where the bullet can still be found in his head today. The immediate aftermath of this particular shooting was interesting. Suge Knight got out of the vehicle, ran around to the other side of the car to try to pull Tupac Shakur out. Tupac, alive at the time, was retrieved from the vehicle, and as medical personnel and police responded to the scene, one of the most famous lines that Tupac said to the police officer was, as they asked, "Who shot you? What happened to you?" Tupac responded with a big you, which was crazy. Now, Keefe D is on trial for murder. Did he pull the trigger? No. Out of the 4 people in the car, and if you have 2 people in the front and 2 people in the back, Keefe D was one of the 4 people in the car. His nephew pulled the trigger, is what he is saying, allegedly, on documentaries and countless interviews where he talks about this crime. A 2019 book, or a previous book that he has released, he talked about his nephew pulling the trigger. All the other 3 assailants in that car have passed away. Keefe D is the only person left. In this case, he's kind of an accessory to the crime. While he's not the one that pulled the trigger, he's looking at first-degree murder charges. So when we talk about the Tupac investigation, so many people have been going into this, and Las Vegas police have gone into this crime. They have completed an investigation that took a really long time, guys. I think it was something like almost 30 years to solve this crime and to finally get Keefe D for this. They typically try to blame things like victims not wanting to come forward, witnesses not wanting to speak, all sorts of things for them to get results on this particular case. There were so many theories. Many people talked about Suge Knight having something to do with this and setting Tupac up, which is a little crazy, but most importantly, Keefe D in his interviews has mentioned that Puff Daddy paid him $1 million to take out Suge and Tupac. Let's talk about our brother Suge Knight. Before entering the music business, Suge Knight was an American football player from the 80s, appearing twice for the Los Angeles Raiders in 1987 before entering the music business. After Suge's career in football, one of the things that he was super passionate about was music. He then started Death Row Records, where 2 of his prominent artists were Snoop Dogg and Tupac. Suge Knight took pride in the fact that he had integrity with his record label, and at the time, many people wanted to sign Tupac. Tupac was the hottest thing on the block, whether he went to Interscope or Death Row. Diddy also had an eye on Tupac because of the talent. I believe in 1993 or 1994, there was a previous shooting incident in New York where Tupac was shot a number of times, and it had to do with Bad Boy Records. Tupac became very apprehensive and did not trust anyone from New York when this happened. He had to then consider what he was going to do with his music career, and that's one thing that a lot of people don't know about Tupac, is he actually, before he lived in Baltimore, is a New York native. He lived in New York before he lived in Baltimore, and then ultimately ended up on the West Coast. The thing about Diddy that baffles so many people is that back in the day, when Diddy was in his 20s and 30s, he was also considered an artist as well. Diddy was not considered a producer at the time or a background person. Back then, Diddy would be in videos with his artists. You can think about Mace, you can think about Biggie. Diddy would find himself in these videos with these artists, but also making his own music as well. So he was also considered an artist. Suge Knight was famous for his quote at the Source Awards when he said, "If you want to come to Death Row, you don't need to be all in the videos." Suge was mentioning that he was not going to be the same type of producer or manager or director or of any type of company the way that Diddy would be. Tupac and Suge Knight bought so much money to Death Row Records. With their famous hit, California Love, they started to take off, and so did people like Dr. Dre, who is famous for Beats by Dre. Decades later, you could see the impact of Death Row and some of the people that have gone on to do amazing things. However, Suge's life took a turn. Suge Knight spent a few years in prison. Those charges were centered on assault convictions and violations of probation. Suge could not keep himself out of jail. He initially was on probation for assaulting 2 rappers in 1992 at a recording studio. Following a few stints in jail, he was then sentenced to 28 years in prison in 2018 after pleading no contest to voluntary manslaughter and the fatal 2015 hit and run. So now that we hear that, I think it's important for us to go through Suge Knight's long rap sheet. And let's talk about it, because he will not be eligible for parole until October of 2034. Well, off into the future. Suge Knight's arrest record includes: in 1995, Knight received a 5-year probation hearing on a probation violation that took place on September 7, 1996. That is the day that Tupac died. They tried to give him a probation violation for being involved in that incident. Suge Knight and his entourage attacked Orlando Anderson, an opposing gang member. The label owner was then sentenced to 9 years in prison for violating his probation. Oh my God. So Suge Knight was actually arrested for his involvement in the fight on the night Tupac Shakur was killed. He was released in August 6th of 2001. He spent a long time in jail for violating his probation and being involved in that fight, also getting shot in the head. 2003, Knight received another jail sentence for violating parole after he assaulted a parking lot attendant. I mean, guys, like, that one's his fault. Come on. You don't hit people for trying to park your car. Like, what? 2012, Knight was arrested in Las Vegas after police found marijuana in his vehicle, as well as several outstanding warrants for traffic violations. Suge Knight is wilding out. You know, like, pay your parking tickets or your traffic violations. Go to court. Take care of it. If you have a warrant for your arrest, that means you're not going to court. You get it in the mail, like, go to court. Like, keep yourself out of jail. Keep yourself out of jail. 2015, Knight crashed his car into 2 young men, one of whom was Terry Carter, the co-founder of Heavyweight Records and a friend of his. So it sounds like Suge Knight has a little bit of a temper. He ended up killing Terry, while the second person and filmmaker, Clay Sohn, suffered injuries to his head and foot. Some witnesses claim that Suge had followed the pair after an argument on the Straight Outta Compton film set, with claims that it looked intentional. In 2018, Suge pled no contest to voluntary manslaughter, which has now seen him into a 28-year-long prison sentence. 22 years for the hit and run charge, and the following 6 years for it being the 3rd strike on his run-ins with the law, violating probation. He is now serving his prison sentence in the Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. Right now, Diddy is in some deep water. Keefe D has said that Diddy paid him to commit this crime. When Keefe D was arrested in September of 2023, it was very interesting that Keefe D had said this publicly, had accused Puffy publicly, and was not bought in on this particular case that was in front of a grand jury in Nevada. A month and a half later, in November of 2023, you had the Cassie lawsuit, which exposes Diddy for some of the assault allegations against multiple, in that case, 1 woman. Weeks following, we are up to 4 lawsuits of Diddy committing crimes against women. He has co-conspirators, and there are many rumors that this is a grooming mechanism in the music industry that was normalized that many people did not agree with. There are so many theories that are connecting Diddy to the Tupac murder, but more interestingly, you have Kim Porter, you have Shine, you have J-Lo, you have so many people that have either died or have been in some sort of trauma surrounding Diddy. But one that we are not talking about is Biggie Smalls. Suge Knight and Diddy have had a tumultuous relationship over the years. Suge Knight and his latest podcast talked about this and mentioned how he and Diddy have had many differences over the years, but he's also watching the news heavily from jail to to look at Diddy's impact and the implications against him. One of Tupac's most famous last quotes was, "Hey Suge, they shot you in the head. They shot you in the head." Meaning that on the day that Tupac was shot along with Suge Knight, there was a very clear headshot for Suge Knight. Although he did not die and ultimately Tupac did, you have to remember Tupac didn't die immediately from his injuries. He was trying to jump towards the back seat, and I believe there were 4 bullets altogether. One through his chest, which was probably one of the ones that killed him, but Tupac's injuries were sustained when he was trying to jump to the back seat of the car to shield himself from the bullets. Mo Cream and others in the Tupac family have been very skeptical over the years about what happened to their brother, and ultimately the family wants this to go to rest. For this to all come up 30 years later is extremely hard for all of them. So Suge has something to do with this. He has also mentioned that he is not going to be testifying in the Keefe D trial at all. People do have a choice when it comes to these things. If they have evidence of him having pertinent information to this case, he can absolutely be compelled to come to court during the Keefe D and Tupac trial. But Suge Knight is still in a corrections facility. He's still a prisoner for other crimes that he committed. It is going to be very interesting to see what comes out in Suge Knight's podcast over the next few weeks leading up to this trial. He has a lot to say about Puffy. He has a lot to say about Keefe D, even mentioning that Keefe D would be safer in jail than out. So what do you guys think about this particular case? It has been a conundrum for so long, after 30 years. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. This is our deep dive on Suge Knight. There's gonna be way more to come when it comes to this particular case. See you in the next one, and stay safe out there. Bye.